Hello and welcome to Overselling Parts Unknown, the show where we talk about wrestling and only wrestling. I am your host, Bro with Glasses, along with my co-host here, The Insanity.
It is always a great day to be alive, especially when you add context.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we are on a journey, a very long journey, going through the Attitude Era, starting at WrestleMania 14 and ending at WrestleMania 17, and covering every show in between.
I've not watched everything that the Attitude Era has to offer, but I can tell you right now, I don't think it's going to be as long as you think because we're going to have way more fun. Because at least the Attitude Era had mostly watchable segments.
And our first episode covered WrestleMania 14. You can find that on the channel. And today we are covering the Raw after WrestleMania, March 30th, 1998, in Albany, New York. This show opens with a video package from last night's show with a song very reminiscent of Star Wars. We have Jim Ross and Michael Cole on commentary for the first hour of Raw is War, and the crowd is super thirsty for Steve Austin.
Young Michael Cole's sighting.
Yes, very young Michael Cole. Do you know when he started in the company?
I'm not entirely sure. I want to say probably, 95, 96. I do know he has a pretty interesting background as somebody who used to do a lot of what do they call it, like war broadcasting or war journalism. Like he would actually go to active war zones and record on that shit. Yeah, it's insanely like interesting because you're like, wow, and he took a job as a wrestling announcer.
Vince McMahon is the first man in the ring tonight to major boos, and he is carrying the new WWF World title with a navy blue strap. And for some people, they will call it the best looking WWF title of all time. I know that's a very subjective statement, but hey, don't shoot the messenger.
There's only a few like awesome title belts. The spinner belt is definitely on the top of my list. Wink.
Vince McMahon introduces the new WWF champion, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who comes out and he takes the new belt with zero hesitation and chucks the old Wing Eagle belt. Vince McMahon apologizes to Austin for not thinking of him as championship material. More boos from the crowd. Vince basically wants Austin to be a corporate champion without saying those words. You know, a suit wearing, properly speaking, tight knit kind of guy.
My favorite part about it is how he tries to push it off like he's trying to make a deal with the devil type scenario where he's like, yo, you should definitely side with me and I'll turn you into the greatest corporate champion of all time.
Yeah, Vince actually believes that he's the good guy in this scenario, that he is doing what's best for the company.
To be fair, at this point in time, technically he is a good guy. Most people haven't heard anything about his allegedly bad dealings yet.
Austin takes the mic. Austin says he understands that Vince hates him, and Austin hates him too. Vince says, I don't hate you. Hate is not a word in my vocabulary.
If I remember correctly, it's I am not capable of hate, which honestly, that did not age well.
Oh, of course not. And I think we talked about this, is that I want to clip every single time that he uses the word hate or how he describes that he hates someone and reference this.
I mean, I think there's some quotes we should definitely like take from him, especially from the Attitude Era, because I know they later shows and later pay-per-views and even like a decade down the line, we're going to be hearing a lot of what's the word I want to use? Quotable memes that will easily need to come out every time he does it later on in the later shows.
So Vince says, I don't hate you, Austin. I think you're a swell guy. I love you. Austin says, what? I said, I love you. Austin replies, well, listen, I'm gonna do things my way. And if you don't like it, I am going to make your life a living hell. So Vince gives him an ultimatum. We can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. Austin thinks about it for a second and says, screw it. Stone Cold Stunner, and so begins a feud that not only establishes Austin, but also Vince McMahon. And The thing about this feud that goes understated just a little bit is the trickle down effect that it has on the rest of the roster of how factions get formed, new superstars get created under Vince, and how they feud with Austin and how they eventually turn on McMahon. So this is referred to as the greatest wrestling feud of all time for a multitude of reasons, and this is the first one why.
Shout out to Vince, man. He took an epic stunner in such a great fashion. Like that sell job is just still going to be great every time he takes it, and we're going to be seeing at least 18,000 more.
All right, so the first match of the night is the Legion of Doom versus Los Briquas. This was a very quick squash match.
Yeah, it's really not even important to know who even was in the match because of how quickly that match ends.
Bro, the only person I know in Los Briquas is Savio Vega. I didn't even know he had a whole faction behind him.
That I did know because before I stopped watching WWE, and honestly, it was more of like I just didn't have cable at the time. But before I stopped watching, I remember they started this whole faction warfare stuff with the DOA, Los Briquas. They had that military faction, and then they had like another one. And honestly, outside of Savio Vega, I was like, who the hell are these other guys? Apparently, it's like an entire, I don't know who I'm going to offend with this, but either Puerto Rican or Cuban faction. And honestly, I'm not even sure who the other guys actually are. I never actually cared to look them up because of how badly they get squashed every night.
One guy gets thrown to the outside with a clothesline, doomsday device. See you later.
Also, at one point during the match, we do get a Kevin Kelly reporting that Vince is going to be calling cops on Stone Cold.
Yes.
That's how important the match was.
Yes, Austin will be getting arrested, I'm sure, which will be one of many times going throughout the years. Next match is Kurrgan with the Jackal versus Chains of the DOA.
Young Don Callis sighting.
Yeah, with fucking crazy ass hair, man. It's
yeah. I still have no idea where that hate comes from.
The hate of what?
Don Callis. I don't know if you're really paying attention to the AEW product, but that man can't even touch a mic without getting booed.
You know what's crazy? I'm not even sure what he really does. I mean, yeah, he'll come out, he'll cut like heel promos and shit, but it's nothing that like really sticks out in particular. I think he's just like a natural, like douchey looking guy. Like he looks very slimy.
I think it's because he sounds like he possibly sells children, and I don't mean that in a pedophile way. I mean that in like hey, if you buy this kid at a discount price, I'll throw in like 3 more.
Sign watch. Some very interesting signs in the crowd tonight. Some idiot is holding up a Kane fears Pete Rose sign spelled CAIN, but the C was painted over with a black K. This is another quick squash match. Kurrgan is another big man who really can't do much, a la Giant Gonzalez. Kurrgan dominates. He submits Chains with a claw to the face and drags Chains to the back. And I can tell you, in the following weeks, there is no follow-up to this.
Kurrgan can do stuff. It's called Hollywood. Okay, he becomes a noted character actor. Literally one of my favorite character actors, because every time you need a big guy who does monster shit and looks like a monster, the guy that named Kurrgan is literally who they call it most of the times. In fact, he was in 300. He killed that role.
Yeah, who's the other big dude? Wasn't Nathan Jones in a few movies too?
Oh, Nathan Jones was in a lot of movies. He was in one. It was like a Muay Thai movie, but he doesn't do any Muay Thai. It's literally just called Muay Thai. I think it's called Muay Thai Giant. He's in a lot of things, and then he's in Ong Bak. Love that movie.
Yeah, so if being a big guy in wrestling don't work out, there's always a role for you in some kind of action movie.
This is true. Look at Dave Bautista.
So we cut backstage, and the police show up with Vince directing them to Austin's dressing room. Next match is Jeff Jarrett versus Aguila. We got Tennessee Lee, who introduces Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett gets full entrance with light up jacket and a fucking horse. bringing them to the ring.
The most flamboyant entrance on the planet. It was so brutal. I don't even know why they did such spend so much on that entrance because the match is nowhere near as important as that entrance.
Yeah, bro, that's like a WrestleMania match. That's a WrestleMania entrance to get all that bullshit, and it's like some random Raw.
Not just any WrestleMania entrance. That's like, hey, this is going to be like a middle of the show type match, and yet that match is barely like a dark show match on today's shows.
As we talked about on WrestleMania 14, Aguila is Essa Rios, who sticks around for a few years. He's also 19 years old here. So, I mean, he has a ton of potential, but as we know, luchadors don't really do well in pro wrestling in the WWF. So, Tennessee Lee is popping off on commentary. Aguila goes for a springboard arm drag with Jeff Jarrett no sells. So, Aguila just does a clothesline. Aguila goes for a corkscrew moonsault. Jarrett. So Jeff Jarrett was supposed to roll forward and dodge the moonsault, but Jeff Jarrett wasn't close enough. So he inadvertently rolls into the perfect position for the moonsault. Then Jarrett has to no sell and point to his head and go, I'm such a smart heel. And he puts on the figure four for a submission victory.
No offense, but we were putting way more importance on this match than WWE did because Aguila literally had the most important match of his life the night before and is now getting jobbed out in literally like a 5-minute match. The Diva matches from the 2000s had more time than this match did.
Jobbing out to Jeff Jarrett, who has like no significance on this show at all.
Did you say Jeff Jarrett doesn't have significance on the show? First of all, he's entertainment. Secondly, he has literally the funniest manager in it, unintentionally funny manager in the entirety of WWE at that time.
Bro, Tennessee Lee kicks ass.
I love the horseman Tennessee Lee.
Yeah,
don't you ever get that twisted.
Yeah, did I mention that last episode where like the way like Tennessee Lee speaks is like a horse. It's like, oh, welcome the greatest wrestler of all time. And he does that shit every single night. After the match, Steve Blackman comes out to whoop Jeff Jarrett's ass, but Jarrett escapes. Cut to backstage, and the cops bring out Stone Cold in handcuffs. Austin is just popping off, by the way. Like, he don't even give a shit.
Now, the best part of that is the fact that they played it off earlier in the night with one of the updates when they said Austin was quoted as saying, McMahon doesn't have the balls to call the cops on me. And not only did he call the cops on him, but they show him getting escorted out. Now, if I remember correctly, that car literally is the most nondescript car on the planet. I'm pretty sure that was something that like a regular worker appeared into because those cops look incredibly like rent-a-cop all the way. It's insane. Like they barely look like police officers.
It wouldn't surprise me if they were either paid actors or just like local indie talent they hired to play cops. So yeah, Vince sends Stone Cold to jail, and Austin is gone for the rest of the night. Right after this, Vince McMahon walks to the ring just so he can say, well, I didn't want to do it, but I had to. And then he goes back up the ramp. I don't know why he couldn't say this backstage or in a Titantron, but do you, bro?
After being at shows, I kind of understand why. Because if you look at it, you'll see on the Titantron or the screen when different backstage stuff happens. A lot of the times it doesn't have nearly as much significance because people will probably like not be paying attention to the screen at times, and it'll give you a lot of context on that screen. So him coming out to explain it does actually make more sense.
Jim Ross promotes an announcement from Triple H concerning the future of DX. We're also getting a rematch between Terry Funk, Cactus Jack, and the Outlaws in a steel cage tonight. Cut to the Nation of Domination backstage where we get the debut of the Oval IC title with a purple strap. I have no memory of this whatsoever.
I think you might have skipped a part. We definitely did the Raw's first hour ends and we go into the War Zone now.
I believe the Nation promo was before the War Zone. So yeah, this is the debut of the Oval title, which people would call the Attitude Era IC title, but it would last up until about 2011, I think, when Cody Rhodes would trade it in for the more traditional IC title strap, the one that The Rock actually had on WrestleMania, but now he has this new one with which commentary does not acknowledge at all. The Rock says he hasn't forgotten about what Shamrock has done to him and tells Farouk that tonight the nation will be stronger than it's ever been.
Did you like the look on Farouk's face where it looks like he's a little shaky and it looks like he's like super nervous about something going down?
Yeah, the Rock and Farouk have been at odds for weeks now, so you can tell it's going to come to blows at some point. So now we transition to the War Zone, which is the second hour of Raw. Where the first hour is like family friendly wrestling, so to speak. In the second hour, you get more cussing, more sex, more violence, and Michael
And
Cole.
yeah, I was going to say replace the squeaky clean Michael Cole with the disgusting Jerry Lawler.
Jerry Lawler, you guys know his whole gimmick is just being horny. Sometimes it's funny, other times it's like, all right, bro, you just calm down just a little bit, just a little bit.
It's kind of funny a little bit only because of the fact that he was supposed to be like this great like wrestling face from the Memphis era, and he became like when he transitioned into the announcer game, he ended up becoming like this nasty hornball who just said wild shit.
Because that was who he really was. That wasn't no gimmick.
I'm not debating that. I just think it's hilarious.
So, we got Rock and Farouk versus Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman.
Are you about to say we're gonna have some black man on black man violence?
I felt like that was just too easy to make, but hey, listen, you said it, not me.
I thought one of us had to say it, so I thought I'd take the bullet.
Shamrock and Blackman look so cool together. Like you got these two like fucking buff ass dudes, fucking shredded from head to toe. Both of them got these martial arts backgrounds, and it's kind of a shame they both have the charisma of a stale cookie.
First of all, that may be true, but Ken Shamrock doesn't need to have personality. All right, we just need to know him as this crazy, crazy psychopath who's willing to do terrible shit and can actually kill you.
And that
Steve
works.
Blackman, on the other hand,
And listen, that works for him. Just don't give him a mic. That's all.
that's fine. But Steve Blackman, all right, I just want to point out, looks like notable action star Gary Daniels. So as far as I'm concerned, he's a winner in my book.
I have no idea who the hell that is.
Where not a lot of people know that guy's name, but you've probably seen him in plenty of action movies in the 80s and 90s.
So the match gets started. The Rock teases fighting Shamrock, but tags out. Farouk is getting beat down. 2-on-1. Farouk looks for the tag, and The Rock is purposely holding his hand too high and just says, fuck it. Walks off the apron and right to the back. Belly to belly by Shamrock for the quick win.
The way he does him dirty is just like brutal as shit. Like I understand where he was going with that, but god damn did he have to do it so disrespectfully like that.
Yeah, the Rock, and as we see going forward, The Rock is a master at these small nuances with his character. You know, from his facial expressions, from his body movements, how he like interacts with like everybody else in his faction, and he's so good at that, and he'll only get better as time goes on.
I do love the promo that Farouk is about to put out. My most quotable line from that whole promo is literally, "No boy grows up when they cross me."
I'll tell you what, I kind of wish they leaned more into that aggressive character of his, because outside of, you know, like black militant leader, he doesn't really have a character. He's more of a gimmick, you know?
All right. First of all, angry black man's not a gimmick. It's a cliche. Get it right. Secondly, all right, you are talking about a guy who literally came into the WWF at one point, literally like trying to murder Ahmed Johnson. So technically, it's not a gimmick or even a cliche. It's literally his whole personality.
Like you said, Farouk calls out The Rock. The Rock comes back out. We get a quick pull apart brawl. The Rock tries to leave again, but he stops on the ramp. We get a close up shot of The Rock doing the people's eyebrow, and Mark Henry, D'Lo Brown, and Kama Mustafa turn on Farouk.
One of the saddest things to watch. Farouk fall so hard, especially when The Rock basically like declares that he's now officially the new leader of the nation.
So The Rock hits Farouk with a rock bottom. He grabs the mic and says, don't you ever think you were the leader of The Rock. The Rock is the leader of the nation. And before I go, let me leave you with a little something. And he kicks Farouk and he says, take that back to Haiti where you come from.
Yo, I continue to look forward to that because I know it's going to happen every other week now.
So we go from that segment right into D-Generation X. Triple H.
Oh, I forgot the WWF Rewind. Pete Rose eating a tombstone at WrestleMania 14.
Oh, I do not have that in my notes, but thank you for reminding me. One of the all-time WrestleMania moments, as WWE likes to tell you.
I mean, the man's a Hall of Famer for a reason. He ate that tombstone like a champion.
Yes, he did. Didn't he pass away recently?
No, you're thinking about his reinstatement to the MLB.
Was that a joke or are you being serious?
No, I'm being serious. They just recently announced it. Shoeless Joe Jackson, two guys who were essentially banned from MLB, Major League Baseball, have now been allowed back because of the fact that they're kind of redoing everything again, especially because gambling is not nearly as bad as it was back in the day.
Oh, no, he's dead, bro.
Really?
Yeah, September 30th, 2024.
All right, it's official. You want to be forgiven, just die.
Yeah, R.I.P. Pete Rose.
So, R.I.P. bro.
Triple H comes out with China. We get the iconic X Pyro going forward, which is probably my favorite pyro. I would say it's top 3.
Easily the top of the class. It's got to be Kane's. 2 has to be Dave Bautista's. That will literally kill it. Like, whereas Kane makes you feel the heat, and yes, you do feel it no matter where you sit in that stadium, Dave Bautista's pyro, if you're not careful, will literally stop your heart.
Triple H, who is still the European champion after beating Owen Hart last night, addresses Mike Tyson and Shawn Michaels. Triple H says he had his doubts about Tyson, and Michaels told him not to worry about it. And Shawn dropped the ball. He says he'll be picking up the ball and making all the decisions from now on. He says this is the genesis of D-Generation X. He is building the DX army. And to build an army, you need to look to your blood, your buddies, your family, to the clique. And when he says clique, one guy in the audience goes, yeah!
I did like the fact that he kind of pulls like something that ECW has been doing for like at least a decade before this point, where they were essentially throwing in like backstage lingo with front of the curtain theatrics, and he talks about the clique in general. So that was interesting that he would even bring that up, because the last time he did that, he got put in a whole bunch of shit feuds.
And out comes Sean Waltman, aka 123 Kid, aka 6. He gets a decent reaction from the crowd. Gets in the ring.
No offense, when you hear the words "I'm starting an army," you don't always want to start with 123 Kid.
I mean, who else did they have?
I mean, they did have China. They could have said, "Well, I'm making China the head of my army," and then just go from there. And that would have made it less hurt, like painful, when you bring out X-Pac, because there's a reason why they call it X-Pac Heat.
Oh, he gets in the ring and he does the hardest crotch chops I've ever seen.
I was gonna say there's a reason why. It's because it's part of his gimmick. My man has to go 100 no matter what, even when he's being cringe.
They don't refer to him by any name here. Jim Ross just says, "Oh, look who's back." But I'm gonna call him X Pac just for prosperity's sake. He pulls no punches. Comes out shooting. He mentions Hulk Hogan by name, who in a promo said Pac couldn't cut the mustard, and Hogan better watch his mouth. Pac says if Hall and Nash weren't being held hostage by WCW, they'd be here on Raw with them. I don't know about that. Hall and Nash could do whatever the fuck they wanted in WCW without consequence.
And they got paid a ridiculously large amount of money. We're talking like boatloads.
Buku money, bro, for doing the bare minimum.
That's not true. They were killing it. They just killed it on autopilot.
And X-Pac is the promo saying, "We're here to rip ass on the WWF and suck it."
The funny part is he sounds a bit like a petty ex-girlfriend, and then basically like all the cliches and whatnot he pulls out, he sounds like the old man that he's raging against.
I'm sure he was very salty about getting fired.
I mean, you can hear it in his tone. Those old folks at the old folks' home kicked me out. I'm the new edgy kid, even though I'm like almost 27.
No, the only problem with that is, Hogan's and a lot of the older guys, like the old guard in WCW, were holding back a lot of like hot young talent, but Six was not one of them. Not even close. And listen, like I love X-Pac, but like come on, bro, you were not main event material.
Yeah, but the only people that were really holding back at the time were some of the guys that were already like tied up in other feuds. If you think about it.
Going forward in '99 and 2000, that's why most of those guys left. Jericho, the Radicals. I feel like I'm missing. Paul White. I mean, Paul White wasn't held down, but you understand what I mean.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say Paul White was a part of the NWO. That's why I kind of don't include him in that.
So if you're interested, I actually have the promo that Waltman is talking about if you want to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this happened on WCW Thunder, March 26th, which was about 4 days ago. I don't know.
6 people watch this show.
I don't know if this was taped, but it did air on a Thursday. So in October of 1997, Waltman was out with a neck injury. He was sent a notice of termination by FedEx from Eric Bischoff. Waltman claims this was a power play by Bischoff to keep Hall and Nash in check by firing their friend. But Bischoff said that he liked Waltman when he was sober and that Waltman's drug issues were what really got in his way. I'm not going to pick sides in that matter. I think both sides have some merit to it. So going onto the show, Hogan and Bischoff come out to the ring. Hogan is cutting his rambling promo as usual. Kevin Nash comes out and he asks Hogan, who's really pulling the strings here? Why did Six get fired? Why hasn't Scott Hall been on television? Is it because he's too dangerous for TV? And then Nash goes like, what's up with that? What's up with that? Like Hurricane style?
To be fair though, like that time frame, Hall and Waltman probably were on some pretty strong stuff.
Bro, Scott Hall was notorious for no showing events.
And when he did show up, he was not always sober. Something he does attest to in multiple interviews. I mean, he's not Jeff Hardy bad, but still.
Hogan fires back at Nash, saying that Six couldn't cut the mustard. That's all he said about him. And then he says, I don't know where Scott Hall is. He said, isn't that your friend? Like, I was hoping you knew. And Hogan has a point. Like why the fuck would he know where Scott Hall is?
Supposedly he was known to like disappear for like weeks at a time, depending on the show.
Yeah, but why would Hogan know? Like, why is Kevin Nash, Scott Hall's best friend, asking Hulk Hogan where Scott Hall is?
I mean, you're telling me Hulk Hogan doesn't have those connections to find people?
No, he wouldn't give a shit.
With that attitude.
Shit, I mean, as far as Hogan is concerned, that's one less guy taking up TV time for him.
Yeah, you're right.
So, regarding the promo that Waltman cut here on Raw, he was sued for this promo, I guess for defamation maybe, specifically for the Hall and Nash mention, which Nash actually called him over the phone and told him to say. So thanks, Kevin Nash.
So I love Kevin Nash. He always tries to take a lot of ridiculously personal shots at people.
So yeah, so now D Generation X is now being run by Triple H, and he already has a new member.
Can't wait to see the rest of the army.
So we cut to the Slam of the Week, sponsored by Bop It, and it's the Sable Bomb from WrestleMania, and this is the OG Bop It before they added more, gizmos and weird things to it.
Okay, it's called Innovations. All right, you can only stick around with a classic for so long before eventually you start moving on to the new model.
Promo package hyping up Val Venus, who's laying in bed watching his newest porn flick, Live Hard. And he says, when he penetrates the WWF, all the ladies will squeal with excitement. And we get a title card. Val Venus is coming. WWF logo.
I really understand where they're going with this, and it's nice they're trying to do it like a whole porn gimmick. But I think I can't be the only one who's getting like serious sex offender vibes. Like he really does sound like a sex offender on the phone.
Taka Michinoku versus Mark Mero. Sable comes out in the sickest leather dress I've ever seen, and she is over as all hell. Luna Vachon comes out before the match starts, dressed like a bully from a 80s teen sitcom. And then she challenges Sable to the first ever evening gown match at Unforgiven, which is basically a bra and panties match.
I didn't know they had a male version of that called a tuxedo match.
Yeah.
Like who's paying for that?
Listen, I can't speak for myself, but I guarantee you there's at least a few ladies out there that want to see a man get stripped to his drawers.
That's not where I'm coming after it. I'm mostly just coming after it because of the fact that I'm like, wait, they're kind of already in their drawers in the first place. Are you just looking for the stripping element?
Well, that's why they save it for like commentators and like announcers and shit. Like the real like goofy looking dudes who don't normally do it.
I guess that's their way of hiding the people who can't wrestle. Because I'm like, there's better ways to do that.
The match starts. Taka gets in a little bit of offense. Mark Mero hits a nasty power bomb. Sable inadvertently distracts the ref, and Mero low blows Taka. TKO for the quick win, which is a fireman's carry into a neck breaker. And after having such a great showcase at WrestleMania, both Aguila and Taka get jobbed out in under 2 minutes.
Did you like how they don't even mention that Taka is the lightweight champ?
I forgot. Did he even come out with the belt?
No, he doesn't come out with the belt either. In fact, I don't even think he gets an entrance. The best part about it is there's no mention that he even has the title at any point. So we're going to get no graphic, no entrance, no belt, and no literal commentary that he even has a belt.
And it gets even worse for him, as 3 Japanese guys jump the barricade and beat the shit out of him. Brainbuster, chokeslam into a power bomb, and top rope senton from the big guy. They don't refer to these guys by name. I know who they are. I don't know if you know who they are.
I know one of them is Funaki. I don't know if you want me to go through the history that I found on them, but I did find some history on them.
Well, let's save it as we go down the line, and let's see how long it takes for them to be acknowledged by name on TV.
Okay. So because it is pretty rough that he gets jumped and doesn't even slightly referenced as a champion. So he gets his ass whooped in a squash match, and then gets beat up by 3 unknown guys.
We cut to commercial and come back to the Headbangers are in the ring with the new Midnight. So the Headbangers are in the ring with the new Midnight Express, which is Bob Holly with long hair and Bart Gunn with Jim Cornette as their manager.
I think what you wanted to say is Bob Holly with different color hair and Bart Gunn with no reference to him being part of the old Smoking Guns.
Yeah, these are essentially like 2 new guys, and you just ignore whatever happened in their past.
Apparently. I did like the fact that we have Dan Severn and his NWA title coming out with Jim Cornette to the announce table, and yet they're given a bigger like headline than good old fashioned Bob Holly and Bart Gunn.
Yeah, so Dan
I
Severn.
remember.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I remember correctly, they don't even go by Bart Gunn and Bob Holly. It's Bodacious Bart and
Bombastic Bob.
yeah,
Whatever the fuck that means.
and yet it's the Bob Holly's new gimmick is slightly less cringe than its NASCAR gimmick.
Where to say hi? I'm Sparkplug Holly. I like cars. So Dan Severn has like 6 belts. He's also the current NWA champion. I guess they just gave it to him. I don't know who he beat for it.
Honestly, didn't even want to look into it because the NWA was not that big of a company at the time, especially because like once I want to know. I want to say after ECW fell out of them. At that point in time, WCW and WWF both left the NWA for about, what, a decade? Because if you don't know, this National Wrestling Alliance was literally a bunch of promoters coming together to form like a single solitary like group, like an alliance of actual promotions, and they were trying to find a unified champion that everybody could recognize. And when Vince McMahon started his whole I want to take over the territories game, the first thing he did was take WWF out of the NWA. And then not long after, I think it was like maybe 2-3 years later, is when WCW does it because they're like, all right, well, we've seen WWF survive. Now we're going to do it because we have Ted Turner's money and the Georgia Championship Wrestling. What was the Georgia Championship? Yeah, the Georgia Championship Wrestling wrestlers and minds, and essentially started WCW. And then NWA would try to start up a new, what's the word I want to use? Almost like they wanted to start a new like stranglehold or a new empire of a wrestling organization with ECW or Eastern Championship Wrestling before Shane Douglas would throw a title down after a tournament and say, screw that noise. We're Extreme Championship Wrestling, not Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Basically, the NWA sucks ass at this moment. No one gives a shit, including me. I didn't pay this match no mind, brother. So unless you got something to say, we can go right to the finish.
I mean, Dan Severn's a 2-time UFC champion, so yes, it's definitely worth watching.
You know who Dan Severn reminds me of?
Boss from a 80s action movie.
Close. Have you ever played the Yakuza games?
No.
So the Yakuza games, they have like the bosses and the underbosses are like all these dudes in their like 50s and 60s. But when you actually like get to fight them, they tear off their shirts and they're like super buff and shredded. That's kind of what Severn reminds me of.
I kind of thought he looked more like Mr. X from the Streets of Rage games for the Genesis.
I never played those.
Sorry to hear that.
Bob Holly with long hair hits an assisted top rope splash for the win, and Dan Severn beats down the headbangers. I don't give a shit.
If you haven't paid attention, this was for the NWA tag titles.
Bro, honestly, that's how much I fucking. You know what? That's in my notes, and I just skip right past it.
Don't worry, WWE did too, because you barely get a mention of it up until the match ends, and then you're like, where did these titles come from? And it's like, oh, this was supposed to be for titles. It gets mentioned one time by Jim Cornette, and then that's it.
We move on to Stone Cold getting his one free phone call from jail. He says, I'm going to beat Vince's ass when I catch him lacking. And, you know, like the whole time this phone call is going on, there's a kid behind the commentary booth throwing up middle fingers. And someone holds up a sign that says, Kane's mom is gay.
I didn't even know that. That is brutal. I didn't even know that was something that happened on the broadcast.
Yeah, you know, so going back to Sign Watch real quick, they cut to a sea of Stone Cold signs. One guy has an airbrushed sign of Stone Cold stunning Kenny from South Park, And there was another sign where Austin looks like Roger from American Dad, and like big ass alien just looming over Mike Tyson and Shawn Michaels. I don't know what that was supposed to be. Anything else to note here before we move on?
If you were grew up during this time frame, you had somebody who was flipping the bird, especially in your class, because kids were going nuts over Stone Cold.
So the main event is coming up, and while they set up the steel cage, Paul Bearer and Kane come out for a quick promo. Paul says Kane has Taker's number, and this is far from over. And Kane is the first person to kick out of the tombstone. Multiple tombstones at that. Paul Bearer challenges Taker to a rematch at Unforgiven, but in a ring of fire. Paul Bearer doesn't say Inferno match, but Jim Ross says it afterwards. I guess Paul Bearer forgot.
I think it makes more sense that Jim Ross would say that only because of the fact that you had like Paul Bearer going in pure, like, what's the word I don't want to use, like pure promo mode, and it sounds more cringe when the wrestler says it. Sometimes, at least that's just from my point of view. Like, usually you don't want to hear somebody say like, "Oh, I'm going to challenge you to an Inferno match." Like, you'd rather be like, "Hey, I'm going to light you on fire. You want to have this match where the ring's going to be on fire, and we see who doesn't get burned first."
WWF Tag Titles: New Age Outlaws versus Terry Funk and Cactus Jack. Funk and Jack are out first for the main event, not carrying the belts. They show Funk getting that nasty bruise he caught last night, worked on earlier in the show. Billy Gunn and Road Dogg come out. Billy Gunn is wearing a Kenny from South Park shirt, and Road Dogg is wearing a Job Squad shirt. I don't know where the fuck he got that from.
I could have sworn that was like a joke that he was used that they used backstage in the beginning before they ever formed that faction. Shout out to like whatever rules WWF was supposed to follow at that time, because I have no idea how they were able to come out weekly on different shows and wear like licensed gear of some sort, because who was okaying them wearing a South Park shirt?
I guess on one hand, like it's cool because it's cross promotion, right? And then you got South Park signs in the crowd, so like it's not like you can't pretend it doesn't exist. But then
Yeah, but we're not going to pretend like litigation doesn't exist, because like
it does. But I think it will also have to be up to the owners of that property to actually take legal action.
I think it's one of those things that the only reason it got away with what it did at the time was because of the fact that like information that traveled that fast, so guys weren't able to like pop it out nearly as much. Because I don't think, if I remember correctly, it didn't really get reported on, so that's why it kind of made it through the whatchamacallit, made it through the headlines without any incident. Did you like how they explained the rematch, like the reason for the rematch?
Bro, honestly, I don't think I heard that. They just announced a steel cage match out of nowhere.
No, they had a legit reason why. That there was something they didn't bring up until later in the show, but they actually showed the replay of the match, and they said that the reason why it's going to a rematch is because of the fact that Jack and Funk basically put the Outlaws in the wrong dumpster, and considering that that wasn't the official dumpster, it doesn't count. So the rematch is on for that reason alone, and the reason why they put it in a steel cage match is so they couldn't take their opponents to the outside of the arena, or at least in the outside the ring area where the arena is.
I'm not really going to argue. I mean, this match was here to serve a purpose.
Yes.
So the match starts. They brawl. Funk and Cactus double suplex Gun against the bars, and they hang Billy upside down from the top. And Cactus hits his Cactus elbow on Gun, who's hanging upside down, which is pretty cool. This is a very small cage, by the way. This is what, like a 10-footer?
Pretty, if you think about it, it's considered pretty typical what you'd see during this era. Because you think about it, a lot of the guys at this time frame are not nearly as athletic as Billy Gunn. You're not going to see that till at least another, what, probably 3 or 4 more years when some of the WCW and ECW guys kind of trickle over and some of the newer, like, WWE dudes kick in.
And you can tell that they was rushing to get this thing built because the bars aren't even like lined up uh, property properly. And every time someone like ran into like ran the ropes, I was thinking to myself, please don't break. Like this shit looks so rickety. Y'all like one body slam away from this shit falling apart.
To be fair, how many like major slams are going to tear this cage apart? Like, you really think Cactus Jack is going to pull off some like superplex that's really going to break the ring?
Hey, listen, I was just saying, God willing, because Foley has some terrible luck with this kind of shit.
Listen, you have more of a fear that Terry Funk's going to die of a heart attack in the ring right now than you do actually the ring falling apart.
Gunn hits the rocker dropper, which is the famouser, on Cactus Jack, allowing them to handcuff Terry Funk to the cage. Not by his hands. They have a very like long pair of handcuffs, so they wrap the chain around Funk's neck and cuff the bars, so he's stuck there. I've never seen that before. That was pretty cool. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was going to say they do that. They actually do that in ECW a couple of times, and they usually do it. They've done it in a bunch of hardcore matches in Japan. It was like kind of like the quick way of getting a person out of the match.
Oh, my mistake.
Yep.
Uh,
Hardcore wrestling overseas is insane.
Cactus fights off the Outlaws 2-on-1. Only one person needs to escape to win the match. And as Cactus is hanging over the top of the cage, here comes DX. X-Pac hits Cactus with the chair, sending him back into the ring. Outlaws with a spike pile driver to Cactus on the steel chair. Road Dogg does the worm for some reason, and he gets the pin. New tag team champions.
Was it really the worm? If I remember correctly, it was his shimmy elbow.
No, bro, he did the worm, and then like it didn't lead to a move, and he just did the worm and just pinned Cactus. Like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? So 4-on-2 beatdown. Crowd is chanting for Austin, who has nothing to do with this, and he's in jail. Cactus Jack is getting his ass whooped. Pedigree, Bronco Buster, nasty chair shot that wraps around Foley's head, and the new and improved the DX stands tall to end the show.
Poor Terry Funk dying in the ring, getting choked out by that chain.
I
He
mean,
sells that like a champ.
Terry Funk is one of those guys that I didn't pay much attention to during his short stint. When he was around, and what was it? 06, I believe, doing that HW show with Foley. He's one of those guys when you're young, you don't appreciate a guy like that until you get older and you learn more about wrestling. And this is a man who, even in his 50s, bro, was giving it his all every single week.
To be fair, I was a regular ECW watcher. In fact, during this time frame, he had already faced off against multiple legends in hardcore matches. One of which is the greatness that was Sabu, and
R.I.P. Sabu.
there was also his like tag team with Tommy Dreamer, where they actually, if I remember correctly, they did actually win tag titles together. So him doing wild shit was something that most WWE fans would not have watched if they had just concentrated on the World Wrestling Federation.
So, what did you think of the show?
I thought it was pretty good. They did a pretty good job of setting up all of their future storylines. The wasn't really a shock at the end with the New Age Outlaws, but I did like the fact that they essentially like protected Funk without actually like making him look weak. Because it's like, well, you can either choke to death or you can just sit back and watch Cactus Jack get murdered. So that main event was pretty hype. Everything else was somewhere between can't wait to see how it plays out and seriously what was up with both squash matches. Like, goddamn.
Yeah, a real storyline driven show. Not much in the terms of like in ring work, but this show was essentially, how would I say it? This is where the future is pretty much set. You know, we got Austin McMahon, The Rock took over the nation, Triple H taking over DX.
It's kind of like the start of a new season if you think about it.
Yeah. It's the start of a new era in WWE, and this feels like the official start. Especially with Shawn Michaels going and him being the top star in the company, so they have to shift completely into a new direction. But yes, that was Monday Night Raw, March 30th, 1998. Thank you for joining us. I am Bro with Glasses, signing off along with my co-host, The Insanity.
Definition of insanity is not what you think it is. Stop that shit.
And we will see you on the next one. Good night.